Well, Merry Christmas, folks. We're back after a brief holiday hiatus for the weekend. Good to be with all of you again. I'm going to wait and hear how my voice sounds over YouTube. There's a slight delay, so it should be a second. Well, Merry Christmas, folks. Okay, it sounded a little tinny, but no echo. I will take it. Let me introduce my two current co-hosts. We've got the illustrious, pun intended, Ardenon. Say hi to the folks, Ardenon.
How you doing tonight?
And we have the redoubtable Martel, who's become kind of a fixture lately, much to our delight. So how are you doing?
Howdy, folks. I'm doing just fine. Pleasure to be here.
I'm just going to wait and make sure everyone can hear you too. Yes, you are audible. So
Excellent. That's always good to know.
Yeah, audio's not perfect, but beggars can't be choosers. I have my old headphones plugged back in because I think the problem is my new ones aren't noise canceling, and Windows 10 just won't let me adjust the input sensitivity. So I'm going with these.
Thank you, Microsoft.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Steadily declining since 2007.
That should be the new tagline. They should pay you for that. I would.
Yeah, that's right.
So, okay.
Truth in advertising, right?
Right. So the last time we left off, we were just doing a bunch of grinding to unlock some classes, including Calculator. And I did have time to grind some more over the Christmas holiday. Had time to get some JP. And I think you folks will be pleased with the results. Because here's what we're working with now. And yes, there it is. Although calculator abilities are really expensive. And they only have one page of stats. So I was only able to learn spells that are multiples of 5. Or rather, I can only target enemy stats that are multiples of 5. And I've gotten so far ahead of myself that there are no shops that have the calculator's weapon yet. And I can't quite remember what it is. So unfortunately, Janet here is not terribly useful in combat at the moment. But I did unlock Ninja, which you can tell by the fact that Reinhard is wielding 2 Mage Mashers.
Those the traditional ninja weapon?
No, those are actually thief weapons, but if you go over here to ability, he has 2 swords set, and ninjas teach you that.
Ah.
And you can carry it over to other classes once you master it. And that is the key to my next trick, which is the weapon duplication exploit. I was about to check that out. How does that sound, folks?
Looking forward to it.
And yes, Chad, it is math time. Let's see who we got here. Gonna give a brief shout out. Bradford Walker, always great to see him. We have Matthew Martin, Raul Nyanzi, Simon Hogwood, and Chan. Excellent to see all of you and hear from all of you. So, see, I have sent out the social media notifications. Let's just get down to business here. So the way the duplication trick works is... Okay, I need to change his class. Unless... she knows 2 swords. Because I need someone who can equip a shield. Yeah, okay. So she can do it. Pretty sure a squire can equip shields. If not, I'll have to use a knight. Okay, I'm gonna have to use a knight. It's okay. Because she can be a knight. Yeah, quite the motley gang we have here. I've unlocked a lot of classes.
Calculators, knights, thieves.
Oh yeah, here, let me go back in there.
Any other unusual or interesting classes?
Well, we've got Summoner. We have a Mediator. I think you already saw Oracle. We have a Geomancer, which sucks, but you need 2 levels of it to get to Ninja. We have Samurai. We have Ninja. And of course we have Calculator, who's kind of backbenched at the moment, but is going to be super important later.
On account of they don't have their TI-30 yet.
Yeah, I don't have the main weapon yet,
No,
and
it's not that.
yeah, and they're really expensive to level up. So what are you gonna do? Okay, so right now I've got this character with 2 swords, but I've equipped a shield in the right hand, the weapon I want to duplicate in the left hand, and that's how you set up the duplication trick. So I'm going to save, because I'd hate to have to redo all that. Speaking of which, I was just formatting the print version of the Combat Frame Exceed RPG, and that was a nightmare of trying to get custom margins and the gutter and the headers and footers and the sections I wanted, but I finally did it like 10 minutes before showtime.
Outstanding.
Yeah, I hope so. Hope all that translates to the page. No, sorry, wait. Go ahead, Martel.
I was just saying, very nice.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to do a soft cover and a hard cover.
Oh yeah, I'll be there for the hardcover.
Hardcover's the way to go.
Yep.
Well, okay, it'll just be a matter of making the cover work. I got to rewatch David Stewart's video on how to do hard covers, because there's a trick to it where the measurements aren't exactly the same for the hardcover, even compared to a soft cover of the exact same dimensions. So I'll need a little refresher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So these guys should have... Yep, okay, so they sell the Mithril Sword, so you got to go to a shop that sells the item you want to duplicate. And then go to the character and go to Best Fit, which, yeah, will give us another Mithril Sword there.
Interesting. So just the best fit is giving you the duplication.
Yeah, not quite yet, but so now I got to buy it.
Okay.
And then, so it's not free. Although when we start doing this later with like rare and one-of-a-kind items, it's more than worth it. So we're going to leave the store, going to go to the formation screen. And I'm going to remove both items. And now I should have 2 of the ones I had in my left hand. Oh yeah. So now I've got 5 of them. And I think I had 4 before, so yeah, that did work. So there you go. And when we start doing that with like Chaos Blades and Excaliburs and Save the Queens, that is going to be great because there are enemies that throw those around, and if you equip the Thief's Catch ability, which lets you catch a thrown item and keep it, you can just intercept those rare blades when the ninjas throw them, and then you can copy them. So that's always convenient. I'm glad you're interested.
What was the class that consumes swords for the damage cast?
Samurai.
Okay.
So, Unlimited Blade Works Reign of Excaliburs. Nice.
I don't think... I think Excalibur is a knight sword, not a samurai sword. Samurais can only do that with katanas. But there is a way you can basically get unlimited katanas. Like, just using the copying trick will work on that. But there might be... Because ninjas can throw katanas too. So I gotta look it up and see if there's a map where ninjas throw like high-level katanas. Good question. Okay, so now I'm gonna get on with the story, but I really need to reform my party. This will take just a moment. Okay, getting back on track. It's been a long weekend, folks, but a good one. Now, I know my co-hosts were both talking about how their Christmas holidays went in the green room before the show. Why don't you guys tell chat how your holidays were? Get anything good for Christmas?
Holiday was don't really exchange presents, but just very relaxing, very meditative. That's it. Just a very pleasant Christmas.
Just kind of pondering your orb and such. That's based.
Exactly.
My part, it was a nice, relaxing little holiday with the family. Got to see them.
Outstanding.
Pretty much it.
Well, what more can you ask for, right?
It sounds like chat was having a pretty good holiday too, indicated by a few discussions here.
Outstanding. Oh, and Eli's here. Welcome. Glad chat's getting along. Always warms the cockles of my coal black heart to see that.
Can't help but notice that Mr. Nyancia started talking about calculators, so I feel I've got to talk up the BA2 Plus.
Hmm.
TI business analyst calculator that can do amortization tables.
Ah. Uh-huh.
Surprisingly useful feature.
Oh, I don't doubt it is.
Especially with the installment plan being such a necessary component to modern living.
Mm-hmm. I was just commenting that I haven't replaced the batteries in my HP 15C for some time. I don't think I even remember how to program the darn thing.
What are your favorite calculators,
What does
Chad?
that one do for you?
Well, Rawl says the TI-36X Pro is a good budget model.
Hmm.
Trying to find my... I've got a TI in here that actually works because it's a solar calculator. If I
I
can
love
find
those
it.
things. Keep running forever.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about it. Somewhere in the drawer here, along with all the hard drives and all that kind of good garbage.
Actually, I do have a physics question if you're up for it.
I'll tackle it. I won't guarantee an answer, but I'll tackle it.
All I ask for. I've heard this said a lot of different ways, so I'm kind of curious. Is space actually cold?
Is it cold?
Yeah, like if you were to leave a bottle of water out in space, would it turn to ice?
Assuming the bottle didn't break because of the differences in pressure, because space is we'll call it a hard vacuum, but it's a pretty stiff vacuum. So you're dealing with, you've got 3K background radiation. That's roughly the temperature of outer space, about 2.9 degrees Kelvin. But
Okay. I was just wondering because isn't vacuum a good insulator?
it is a good insulator, but not a very good insulator to radiation. So you've got cosmic background radiation, well, really the EM background radiation left over from the Big Bang. If you buy into the Big Bang, that's kind of bouncing through space, gradually wearing its way down. It's currently at a wavelength that corresponds to 2.9 degrees Kelvin. If you use the Boltzmann theory, you find out that wavelength and temperature can be related that way. So you can find out what the actual wavelength of the radiation is, and it corresponds to a temperature.
So objects left in space will actually lose heat on their own rather than just slowly radiating their own internal temperature into space? Or am I misunderstanding this?
I think you've got a little bit of both. You're going to lose heat radiatively, but you're also going to have just the standard thermodynamics of dropping a 300 degree Kelvin body, U, into a 3 Kelvin body, space. And since temperature differential, i.e. the speed of cooling, it goes as temperature to the fourth power, it's going to cool real fast.
Okay. Fascinating.
You know, the big thing with space is evaporation. Think about freeze drying. You're putting something inside of a vacuum, and the temperature being lowered like that means evaporation is going to take place very rapidly. So you can lose a lot of bodily fluid. You got about 10 seconds worth of being alive, but you'll desiccate in outer space if you aren't in a suit.
Right. Which is why I was asking about a hypothetical water bottle, because I would assume that if you left an opening, the decompression would cause the particles to lose energy faster as it dissipates into vapor.
No doubt. I mean, that's essentially going to be a second law problem, I think. It'll just, entropy will take over, and you'll gradually spread the energy over an area of space as it cools.
Well, there you have it,
All
Chad.
right, thank you.
Yeah. Show up for the video games. Get a physics lecture. Geek Gab, it teaches you while you learn.
Well, hopefully I'm not telling you the wrong thing. I probably need to go refresh my general physics knowledge a little bit. It's been a while.
Well, while you do that, I'm about to go teach some rabble-rousers not to kidnap nobility. So they say Majest shall not go unpunished.
Pour encourage les autres.
What? Yeah, I'm not going to pretend I understood that.
Pour encourage. To encourage the others.
Oh!
I'll explain this to Oracle.
Yeah, I get it. The hanging thing, but yeah, chat might not. Well, a lot of chat probably do know that anecdote.
Just in case, I'll tell him after the cutscene.
So we got that to look forward to, chat. Oh, here's Vigraph again, the leader of the Death Corps. And there's Delita's sister. I love the sound effects on that mill. I'm actually going to turn the game audio up a little. Love it. Huh, that's
I'm
kind
reminded of the.
Yeah?
Oh, I was going to say I'm reminded of the windmill scene of Frankenstein with the animation in here.
Oh, great call. Would not be surprised if that was a reference. Also, Vigraph's line there. Pretty sure that's kind of a nudge and wink pun hinting at a major subplot.
Mm-hmm.
Which we will see later.
So it looks like the Death Corps is split between the groups that have some higher ideals and the group that's mostly just about surviving till the next day.
Right. I just heard we killed his sister. Not going to be happy.
Uh-oh.
surprisingly noble for someone with an organization called the Death Corps.
All right, let's get it on.
All right. And for chat, to encourage the others, line explanation. Back in the 19th or 18th century, a British admiral fought an engagement, won, and then an admiralty court convicted him of failing to do his utmost, and then they hanged him for it. So it prompted a French writer to remark that from time to time one may find it useful to hang an admiral to encourage the others, which in the original French is pour encourager les autres.
Thanks for sharing. Have any of you guys heard of the movie Longitude from a few years back?
Yes.
I have not.
Oh. Hey, can you fill us in?
Well, I'm not sure if I've seen all of it. I've more watched History Channel or History Guy items on Longitude. It was about essentially, I call it a contest to find out how to appropriately map longitude as one is sailing. How was that going to be done? And a number of people attempted to win that prize over a lot of years. And finally, it was done with someone who invented a very, at least for the time, very accurate clock.
Okay.
Yes. And what gave rise to the Admiralty holding that contest, first prize in which was like £20,000, which was ridiculous for the time, was the wreck of the HMS Association, which was a British flagship, along with, I think, all of its escorts. Like, I think the entire fleet basically got wiped out. And it was because the able seaman whose job it was to calculate the ship's position did his job. The admiral and like all the captains said, "No, you're wrong. Our calculations disagree with yours." So they hanged him, and it turned out he was right.
Yep.
Wow.
But that's always been a challenge. Or, well, up until a number of radio and GPS methodologies, finding longitude is much more difficult than obviously finding latitude. Latitude is relatively easy, but where are you on the globe, east to west, is a challenge.
Why is that, if you don't mind my asking?
Well, latitude you can shoot the stars and figure out if you're seeing the North Star 45 degrees over the horizon, you're at 45 degrees north. But longitude, you can't really use the stars because you're rotating on the planet. So that those stars are moving relative to your, not relative to your longitude, but essentially you can't lock on to that longitude using stars as you can with the latitude. So it's kind of a free variable unless you've taken a number of measurements over the course of your trip. And the goal was to know how long you've been traveling so you can take those sextant measurements and say, okay, well, at this time of the day, I'm shooting the North Star or whatever other stars at this time. Therefore, if we travel at this rate in this direction, we should cross this longitude line at this point in time. And that's why the clock function for determining latitude was successful. I mean, there were plenty of other ideas that were put forward, but the the base function was being able to accurately tell the time, because those calculations that were being done, if they had the accurate time within the calculation, you should be able to shoot what longitude you're going to be at.
Fascinating.
That's it. There's a movie. There's an excellent book, Longitude, and then there was a series of short videos that kind of gave the idea about what was going on with the contest. The individual who ultimately was awarded the prize was not awarded the prize for years.
Very interesting. Yeah, I am always impressed at the ingenuity of pre-modern people figuring out ways to do things that we take for granted with stuff like satellite cartography and GPS.
Definitely, our forebearers were not stupid. I think we'd be in a much worse shape than they would if we suddenly had those tools pulled out from under us.
Absolutely. Well, it's like the people like to deride the war-making ability of previous generations because the way they did it was line up and shoot at each other at 50 yards on an open field.
Mm-hmm.
And they like to point out that, it's so much more efficient to stand behind cover or form a skirmisher line or use guerrilla tactics. And they completely ignore the factors that led to line infantry being the king of battle for 300 years.
Yeah. There's a reason things are done the way or were done the way they were. And it wasn't because people were stupid.
Yes. Likewise, armor. You could, to use a gaming term, you could see the meta shift in Europe throughout the age of chivalry, from the Dark Ages until gunpowder, as armor techniques improved and developed and different types of weapons came into the field.
Mm-hmm.
Because they were adapting to shifts in technology and techniques and refining what they knew.
Right. Well, it's things like the crossbow. I mean, I don't think people understand just how powerful. I mean, that was the machine gun of its time.
Yeah, a pope actually banned its use in internecine Christian wars because he thought that it was too good at killing Christian knights, and he wanted manpower for the Crusades.
Right.
Oh, hey, Fiona Wolf. Got off work, did you? Well, kick back and relax with us, because we've got a semi-historical tactics game here, and we have historians talking actual tactics. Complimentary, if you ask me.
And so to address chat, if you don't mind, Mr. Nyancy and Walker have raised some interesting points. So the actual reason for mass formation in a line was not infantry, it was cavalry. Because, especially on the open fields of Europe, skirmishers were extremely vulnerable to a cavalry charge. They simply did not have the weight of fire to kill the cavalry before they closed the distance. So, essentially, skirmishers would beat line infantry. Line infantry were necessary to defeat cavalry, and cavalry were excellent against skirmishers. So it was much better to just focus on line infantry, which were easier to train up.
Mm-hmm.
And then command and control was and is the single most important element to any army in an actual battle. logistics being the most important thing outside of a battle. And before the advent of radio or the telegram, armies would live or die on their command and control. One of the reasons why Napoleon was so terrifying is because he innovated in that regard. And that's why armies used to fight with banners, and commanders preferred to find some hill where they could observe the battle, because that made it easier to keep track of who was where, and it allowed a soldier to see where he should be going.
See if we could snipe somebody.
Excellent points. Yeah, as Ardenon said, our ancestors were not stupid by any means.
No.
I often wonder what the ancient generals would have done with modern day weapons if you had brought them up to speed. Like, give Julius Caesar Panzers, pit him against Rommel, and how do you suppose it would go?
Might be very interesting to find out.
Yeah. Or heck, what would Napoleon have made of close air support?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you another one. Just turn it into what would they do if they had walkie-talkies?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Although it was logistics that doomed a lot of the ancient commanders.
Mm-hmm.
And that remains one of the trickiest things for any nation to do. The reason why America is as dominant as it is because we excel at logistics.
Right.
We're just able to bring more stuff up faster than anyone else. Like, if you actually look at combat performance against Germany in World War II, American units were laughably bad.
Right.
But we had thousands of planes more than Germany, we had thousands of tanks more, we just had more of everything. We did very well in the Pacific, though.
Mm-hmm.
Imperial Japanese Army, not nearly as good as the Imperial Japanese Navy.
Why is that?
We tend to just overwhelm with material.
Well, the IJA had gear which was 20 years out of date when it was brand new, and their concept of tactics was essentially full frontal assault. And if that doesn't work, we'll do it again, only even harder.
Right.
Speaking of
They
which,
were
we just
excellent
won.
at nighttime infiltration, however.
We just won this battle with a single spell.
Nice.
Yeah, summoning is no joke. Oh, looks like some secrets are coming out. By the way, I will point out one pernicious JRPG trope that this game falls prey to is the 90s trend of you defeated the boss. Oh, but not really. Like, he's alive because plot armor and he slinks away.
Mm-hmm.
That.
It does pay dividends.
Flashbacks to AD&D 2.
Oh, really? That happens there?
It's always either an unexpected second phase or they escape.
Yeah.
Sometimes both.
Yeah. At the crisis, you either get to choose killing the bad guy or allowing these 1,000 people that were captured to die. What will you do?
Choices.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, so we just dished out the goods on your brother masterminding the kidnapping of the Marquis. Awkward.
Dum.
I mean, that's a very sensible plan.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, do
Quite
tell.
logical.
Yeah. Oh, he's in denial.
Smoke bomb. Nope. Teleport. You
I didn't
know,
know. He could-
if you can
Go ahead.
do an emergency teleport like that,
Mhm.
why would you wait until your back's to a corner to pull it out? Like, just have someone teleport into the command tent, kill as many of the officers as they can while they're planning the battle out. And yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there you go, ruining drama
Sometime-
with facts. But no, the best authors take those kinds of contingencies into account, right?
Yep. Oh boy, chat.
Yeah.
Chat's been going. Honestly, the Fire Emblem thing, I always thought that Pegasus riders would function much better as aerial recon than aerial bombers, since they just don't quite have the ability to carry a payload that actual bombers do. If the Wehrmacht had American logistics, the war would have been very different. Yes, but there were a number of reasons why they didn't. Actually, there's a fascinating audio recording of Hitler talking to Marshal Mannerheim of Finland after the invasion of the Soviet Union had begun. And it's very fascinating because it's a primary source that cannot be altered of Germany and Finland's high command during the actual war, so there's no post-war recriminations or attempts to make yourself look good. And Hitler is telling Mannerheim, we're a fair-weather army. We had no capability of fighting in winter because all of our war games showed you cannot campaign in the winter. It's impossible. Which is why it took them so long to knock out France, because they wrapped up Poland in a couple of weeks in 39, and then they had to wait until late spring in 40 to actually get anything done. Which is why America and the Soviets had an edge during the war, because we were prepared for winter campaigning and we took advantage of it. It took the Germans a couple of years to get to the point where they could campaign in winter. Very interesting conversation. Nancy, Wyvern Riders, yes. Could carry a larger payload. Although if you were to stick battle mages onto Pegasus Riders or Wyverns, they could actually function very well as ground attack aircraft. Chan says, don't short sell the U.S. Army performance during the war. I'm not. We did very well at integrated operations. It's just that on a unit for unit basis, your typical mid-level Wehrmacht unit functioned much better than a top-tier U.S. unit.
Yeah, and it took us a little while to spin up because we really weren't prepping for war.
Yeah. That is the perennial problem that America has. We spin ourselves up for war, absolutely crush the competition, and then immediately disband everything, forget everything we learned, go down to a skeleton force, and then we have to do it all over again.
Lessons collected, not lessons learned.
Yep.
Snipers are a favorite target of that. Like how many times the U.S. like had to just relearn sniping because they thought it was like unsportsmanlike or something.
There's a whole kind there's an incredible amount of stuff that we continually relearn.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the U.S. Navy had a significant edge against the Imperial Japanese Navy, I would say, on the basis of our radar and gunnery computers. Because, well, radar, it is probably the single most important innovation in warfare in the last 80 years, outside of advances in aircraft, like rocketry, because it gives you that early warning on air and sea so much sooner.
Over the horizon.
And gunnery computers, because that let us do first round accurate salvos ships, whereas the Japanese would get a straddle and then a hit, which, by the way, for the standards of the time, manual gunnery, being able to get accurate fire within 3 salvos is stellar performance. The Japanese crews were very good at their tasks. Also extremely good at torpedo warfare, which is what their ships were optimized for. The big things which did them in were, again, lack of radar and gunnery computers, which meant that ultimately American ships had the edge in night battles, which the IJN focused on. And against any other navy, they would have done extremely well. And there was a particularly scathing line written by the American Navy after the war that damage control as practiced on American ships did not exist as a concept in the IJN. So American ships, everyone was cross-trained in damage control. On Japanese ships, which usually suffered from the poor quality resources of the homeland. Like, a lot of their ships had cast iron piping.
Whoa.
Yeah. That sort of thing. But they also had dedicated damage control teams, and if you weren't on the damage control team, which was usually about a fifth of the crew, you simply did not do damage control. You were not trained in it. You were not expected to do it.
World War II stories that I always found fascinating was Hedy Lamarr and the potential for a non-interruptible torpedo. Because if you like your cell phone, you can thank Hedy Lamarr. She came up with the concept of encoding that we use in cell phones, essentially FM radio, a lot of other electronics, and she held the patent on it, which she turned over to the U.S. for use in the war.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, her husband
torpedoes,
was.
You said?
Yeah, her husband was an arms dealer, and he would talk shop with her over dinner, and that's where she learned about cell technology.
There's an interesting book that I picked up. Jim Ottavani is the author, and he's done a lot of books relative to science. Some of the stories are, well, I'm not buying all of them, but there's a book he's written, and it's also illustrated, obviously, called Dignifying Science. It's a quick rundown of Hedy Lamarr and a number of other female inventors or scientists or those who've kind of nudged science along the way. But It was a neat little story that kind of does a quick synopsis of what she developed, and she developed it with her pianist, I believe the guy who worked with her as a composer. But she was just playing around with him as far as putting musical patterns together, and realized that if I put the patterns together this way, they'll form an interference pattern that can't be decoded unless I've got a key someplace else. It was almost a PKI methodology before PKI.
That's incredible.
She was a bright woman.
Yeah, being able to figure out what it was that she was looking at.
It was really coming from singing, and she realized that as she was singing, and along with the piano, the encoding mechanism that was being built from the music could be transferred to electronics. So that's where it came from. I'll toss the link to Adavani's book into the Discord, into the general chat here.
And I'll throw it in the show notes later. So, Fiona Wolf.
Yeah.
Loving on this game in chat, by the way. And yeah, Monk is essential. Mixing and matching the skills is, that alone is hours of fun. And yeah, my guest characters are like level 3 because I can't bring them into side battles like this. Anyway, just wanted to address chat. Please go on, co-hosts.
If any of you are interested in a good book about the Pacific War and World War II, two very excellent books are Shattered Sword and Neptune's Inferno. Shattered Sword is the result of a couple of historians actually examining primary Japanese sources from the Battle of Midway and writing a history based off of that, examining the flight records from the Hiryu and Soryu and those ships, and comparing them to your standard accounts of the battle. And then Neptune's Inferno by James Hornfisher is an account of the naval battle of Guadalcanal, which doesn't get covered very often in history since everyone looks at what the Marines were doing on the island. But the naval battle was just as significant, if not more so, because that was at a very crucial time in the war. Basically, we didn't actually have a whole lot in the Pacific at the time. We were down to 2 carriers, a handful of surface escorts, and a few battleships, and that was about it. So if we had lost a major engagement off of Guadalcanal, it's entirely possible that progress would have been set back years. Japan didn't have a chance of winning in the end because America is fundamentally incapable of prosecuting anything but a crusade. So we were never going to come to a negotiated peace. But it could have gone a lot worse for us than it did. And
not as bad as it's about to go for these guys. Anyway, go ahead.
Yep. No, I believe in giving credit where credit's due on all sides. Like,
fair.
Just because someone was our enemy or evil or whatever doesn't mean that we shouldn't give credit where they did things right and learn from it.
Right. If you're not going to look at something in search of the truth, you're going to be fooling yourself ultimately in the end.
Yep. Plus, those events were 80 years ago. In another 10 years, everyone who lived through that will be dead. So why bother being partisan about it?
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah. Now, I take partisan sides in historical fights, but I'm also a little bit nuts. So,
Also fair.
Stola did nothing wrong.
Ooh, bold. Bold. Chocobos with their inexplicable ability to heal. Okay.
Innate magic.
Yeah, spell-like abilities, if you will. Although, okay. I can bring my archer to bear now, and he has a special ability where he cannot miss. So...
That's useful.
Yeah, naturally. Yeah, I'll let him get rid of the chocobo. Yep, 100% chance. Right there next to his HP. I do like that the game shows you that with every attack. It just gives you your chance of success.
That is very nice. Yeah, I think these days that's pretty standard.
Hmm.
They'll give you the combat predictions, but yeah, come to think of it, a lot of the classic tactics games. Did the original Advance Wars do that? If anyone here ever played those for Game Boy Advance?
Oh, hey, escape velocity. Yeah, my calculator can only use items right now. That's it. Oh, well. But I did not play Advance Wars. Anyone in chat? We'll wait for them to catch up. Right there, punching bag. We'll be getting to you. I don't think goblins wear equipment. Nope. Ooh. Bad counter. You guys doing okay in Discord?
I'm doing alright.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately having some difficulties. I've had to restart a couple of times.
Ah.
I think that's just on my end with the network.
Well, hang in there. Let's see, can my way fist hit him? No. Wait, what? It lied? It said the archer was going to go first. That's weird. Did he already shoot and I missed it? Well, apparently. Let's pay attention to you guys.
Sorry to distract.
No, not you. I need to learn. Oh yeah, the archer also has the ninja ability to turn invisible when he's hit. That just ended.
Very convenient.
And that's why they were ignoring him. There we go. I was going to tackle the calculator. Not going to stand for that. And keep in mind, I'm effectively limited to 4 units here. Because I do not want that squire up there on the hill to do anything, because I do not want to risk him leveling up.
Looks like chat is discussing the old weather, which saw some good news today. Apparently we're getting record snowfall this year.
Oh, really?
Yep. Which... that side of the country needed it.
There's nothing out there right now.
Drought conditions for the last few years.
Okay.
Like, the reason why the fires have been so bad on the western side of the U.S. lately is because reservoirs are basically out. So...
yeah, I know some of the California reservoirs are were very low this year, at least during certain portions of time.
yeah. So, some snowfall is a good sign for spring.
You know, Washington State's taking a pasting, so I'm sure it's going to roll down the west coast a little bit, as large as the storm system was.
Yeah, apparently they're supposed to be getting quite a bit more this week.
Now I'm probably going to lose that squire here, but oh well, I'll bring her back later. The terrain here is just super complicated. It's hard to tell what you can do from which square.
And again, you've said that if you're managing to get above the enemy, you're getting a bonus to do damage and to strike.
Yeah, but if you get too far above, you can't hit him. And I forget like what the height difference is. I think if it's 2 or it might be 1.5. So like if you're 2 or 1.5 spaces higher, you can't reach that far down without like a ranged weapon. But this will definitely kill this guy. Or not. Oh yeah, that's right. For some reason, the thief's physical attack is ridiculously low. Or maybe just when he's a thief. I don't know what's going on. I just know making him a thief made him like super weak. Oh well. Just gotta kill this cat and then break the goblin here. And we should be fine. It's hard to see this guy.
You're right, the terrain is very difficult.
Ah, finally.
Ooh, done.
Yep. Oh, see, this is annoying. So my downed squire's here at an altitude of 5. I can't stand next to her because the enemy's corpse is there. I can stand to her left, but that's at 4 altitude, and my monk skills can only be used on people on the exact same level you are. So normally he'd be able to bring her back, but he can't. Yeah. So I'll have to just move him out, bring someone else in. It's a puzzle. But it's cool, my calculator can bring her back. Alright, cool, so we can actually do something now. The chakra will work on the calculator since they're on the same level. And that's the best healing art in the game. Because it's free. Oh, also... Oh, wait a minute. Uh-oh. I don't have anyone with night abilities. So I actually can't do this. Alright, I'll just kill this guy. Try this again. Man, calculators are slow.
In terms of initiative, movement, both.
Initiative.
Gotcha.
Like, I think everyone else is going twice for her once. Because, yeah,
Wow.
like, if you look at the AT gauge, so she's Janet. Look how long it is before. Yeah. So she only goes like every 12 rounds.
Wow.
Yeah, that's no good. We gotta buff her
Is
up.
there a way to improve it, or are calculators just naturally bad in that regard?
Well, there are plenty of ways to improve it. We're gonna work on that. That's gonna be a longer term project. Okay, now I've recovered. Start moving out again. I hit him with a rock. Ah, that was satisfying.
I'll stand by.
What's going on?
I'm just looking at chat.
Cool. What are they up to?
Someone asked Sierra Nevada, a mountain range in the western U.S., basically the Rockies.
Yeah, the tallest in the continental United States.
Also where most of the water reserves for the western U.S. happen to be, in the form of snowmelt more often than not.
So have you guys heard the rumor that there is an underwater mob graveyard in Lake Tahoe?
I
Wow.
have not, but that wouldn't surprise me.
That was like years ago. I've heard that bandied about.
And it's because the water temperature is so low that corpses... Because Lake Tahoe is ridiculously deep, like it's over 1,000 feet in some places. and below like 600 feet, the water temperature never gets above 40 degrees, so it's like your fridge. And so decomposition doesn't happen, so that like corpses just stay down there. There's no gas produced, so they don't float.
4 degrees C, 37 degrees Fahrenheit.
Nice.
You think
That's
that's
where
where they stuck Jimmy Hoffa?
I was heard using the floor of the Civic Park Auditorium. I don't know.
I was a little worried no one was going to get that.
Yeah, water's at its densest at 4 degrees C or 37 degrees Fahrenheit. So that sinks to the bottom. So that's why you have lake turnover and you don't have the whole lake freeze.
Although here's another bit of high strangeness with Lake Tahoe. People known to have drowned there have turned up in the lake next door. So it's theorized that there are underground rivers and waterways that connect them.
Oh, interesting.
Wouldn't surprise me in the slightest.
Now, like, apparently there is a dam between them, or like a spillway or something, and so people have theorized that, well, the bodies might have just, like, tumbled over that when the lake was high or something, but again, considering the cold temperatures, well, the bodies would have to be close to the surface for that to happen, so I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, lovely, uplifting Christmas topics here, chat.
Christmas time is here.
Exactly.
Always a wonderful puzzle.
Yeah. Man, I'm going to see if he's got enough JP for the... Oh, okay. Awesome, he's got over 500. I think I can make him not a thief for a while here. Because I wanted that move +2.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got catch. I really don't care about anything else. So yeah, man, thief is horrible with him. I'm going to make him not a thief. But, so there you go. So in answer to Martel... Yeah, you can make the calculator faster by leveling her up in Thief and getting move +2. So that's one way. And then there are like items that increase initiative. And I think it's speed that determines your initiative. Anyway, I'm going to make him something else. Let's see. I don't have the equipment for Samurai yet. Ditto Lancer. What does he need? We could always do some more Knight. The Archer has that sweet concentrate ability. It gives you 100% attack chance all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I already have an Archer. You know, Mediator might actually be a possibility. But again,
Monster talk, interesting.
Yeah, so Mediators are just negotiators. Like they, so you can talk an enemy into joining your side. You can slow them down. You can raise other units, raise or lower other units, brave and faith. So like just preach. You preach the word of God and raise faith attribute. Death sentence. You can just kill with a word. And then negotiate makes them pay you. And then also they have guns, but I haven't unlocked. Yeah, they haven't unlocked guns yet. There are no stores yet that have guns. So I don't think Mediator would be a good idea. He'd be stuck in the same position as the Calculator.
That sounds absolutely hilarious. Yeah, silver-tongued, very eloquent. Also, they have a gun.
Just in
And
case.
power word kill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think I'll go Knight. Although, the
Well,
common
I
Bradford-
suppose that the guns are probably inscribed with Ultima Ratio.
Nice.
Bradford just said that he's picked up some Galactic Heroes novels as well as the first ERB Venus series, all in paperback. Nice. Carson Venus is a great series. I'm going to go back and start rereading Tarzan again. And some Doc Savage. I have missed that.
Yeah. I think he's good to go. Yeah, so I've put the Knight's battle skill on my archer, which means I can hamstring people, lower their strength, and break their equipment from a distance. Oh, and he always hits because of concentrate. So that's going to be nasty.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Glad you approve. Okay. So now I think we're in a better position. I'm going to restock a bit, though. Ooh, and I wonder if they've got any new stuff in. Not really. That's okay. Replace that Phoenix down. And that potion. And those. Okay. Now we're good to go. Okay, Shan and Chad. Commander Yang, what is your genius plan to defeat Reinhard? Yang, have you tried shooting them? And the novel
Miracle
approach.
Yang does it again somehow.
I'm going to pick my battlefield here. There we go. Just a matter of time.
Diana Wolf says, I just wish it was easier to get more indies in front of people. Wondering if I should just tag big IP names and list indie links instead. So many have blinds with the powerful. Brian, weren't you saying something about that earlier with the present state of the counterculture just not being interested in actually winning the culture?
Well, oh, that's a whole ball of wax. But okay, effectively, what happened over? Well, I mean, really, since like 1968, is that entryists, pretty much handpicked by the left, were put into positions of influence over conservatism, and they have just been preaching the steady drumbeat of, well, art doesn't matter. All you need to do is find the right argument, put the right facts in the right order, and then Lefty will have a road to Damascus moment and give up his errors and embrace you as a brother. And we don't need anyone who upsets the apple cart or draws outside the lines. We just need an even keel. We need to keep doing what we've been doing and just not engage the culture. Just keep writing white papers, Just keep funding cruises and writing books that preach to the choir. And it's gotten so inculcated that now anyone who actually comes up with a new idea is just persona non grata and is summarily cashiered out of the movement. I mean, look at what's happened to guys like Milo or Nick Fuentes, Alex Jones, the list goes on. And so now all that's left are these milquetoasts who are never in danger of saying anything that challenges anyone. And they've just got people under their sway. What you may have been referring to is earlier on Twitter, someone retweeted one of the old alt-right guys, I think it was Jack Posobiec, for, like, apparently he was hosting some sort of, like, I don't know, Fortnite or Apex Legends or, oh no, it was GoldenEye, that's right. And it was some shooter.
Yeah.
It was like hosting some GoldenEye tournament on YouTube, and he was doing it all tongue-in-cheek and ironically. He's like, yuck, look, we're playing this old game. It's funny because it's old. And one of my mutuals pointed out...
How it went? Was it?
Come again?
It seemed more like a nostalgia trip to me. Like, that was what he played as a kid, so... You see that with that age group all the time. Like, GoldenEye is a bit of a cultural touchstone for us.
You do, but one of my mutuals was making this point, and I don't know, I just kind of took his word for it because he was a mutual, that the tone was kind of ironic. But he just pointed out, either way, like, how come conservatives are only allowed to talk about the arts in the sense of either one, nostalgia, or two, to go, lol, imagine caring about something stupid like that when we could be discussing, like, Kant or the great books or something, right?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So...
No, I absolutely take your point on that.
Yeah.
Okay. And AA, it sounds like you were about to say something. Go ahead, please.
Oh, no, I was kind of chuckling a little bit. I think, to Fiana's point, my best success is when I've been getting people to read what I consider good books, whether it's indies or going back to pulp or whatever it is. I'm finding my best successes tend to be in adjacent areas. In other words, I'm on some, OSR or old school gaming discords and boards, and I have more luck chatting with some of those folks and saying, hey, have you ever thought about reading something along the lines of Mill's science fiction or mecha or whatever it happens to be? And if I get hey, I kind of enjoy that kind of stuff. Okay, well, here's some authors you want to check out. That one-on-one in the adjacent area seems to be, for me at least, the target. I've been able to turn on like a half a dozen people in the last couple of months to say, hey, try these books out and see what you think, and getting some positive responses back. That seems to be effective for me. I'm not saying it's effective for everybody, but that's where I've seen success. That it just strikes me that if you're trying to do this to a large group of people, try to convince a large group of people, you will have a lot less success than trying to do it more of one-on-one, one-on-two, one-on-three, and have a chat. Talk to them about it a little bit. Get to know them a little bit and introduce that into the conversation.
Yeah, I have a buddy who's, I don't want to say pop cult poster boy, but his interests are pretty typical of folks in Gen X and Gen Y, like huge Star Wars fan, and big reader too. Like just 5-7 years ago, he was reading like Ernest Cline and Patrick Rothfuss and even Scalzi, and I turned him onto Appendix N. I said, hey man, you like D&D. Why don't you try giving these books that Jeff O. Johnson's recommending a try? And he did, and now he's hooked. Like, he's gone back. He just went to the used bookstore, bought tons of Robert E. Howard, A. Merritt, Edgar Rice Burroughs, and he even told me, what? I think I'm done with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll tell you something else that you want to have in your back pocket is some of these folks are on Gutenberg. There's free versions on Amazon. There's other areas where you can go to say, hey, go check this out. Have that list, have that digital list that you can share with someone at a moment's notice. Instead of, say, well, I'll get it together for you. Give me a few minutes or give me a couple of days. Like, no. Have that in your back pocket and ready to email it to them, text them, whatever it happens to be, and just say, you want to read something? H. Beam Piper? Here's the link. Go read H. Beam Piper. I mean, I was talking to Alex Helene and said, you got to read Space Viking or the Cosmic Computer and some of the classic H. Beam Piper stuff. And I think I brushed by Twitter today and saw that he had finished Cosmic Computer, and it just eye-opening when you get into some of these guys who really write that pulp or superversive style.
And thanks for shilling me, Bradford. I appreciate it. Just saying.
Yeah, I think our side is at a severe disadvantage at the current moment because the enemy has Hollywood, movie making abilities, publishing houses, all that stuff, and it's a lot easier to consume movies or TV shows because it's just hour and a half to 30-minute little bites. If we actually were producing our own TV shows, like, well, not to be overly flattering, but Combat Frame Exceed TV show.
Animated or live action?
I would say animated. Much easier to work with that sort of medium, just from a budgetary standpoint.
True.
But live action would work too if you were able to do the CGI properly, which is tricky, but definitely doable.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want another
The
G
tools
savior.
are there.
Sorry, go ahead.
Another what?
Nothing. Forget I said anything. Go ahead, AA.
Your mic cut out a bit, so I didn't catch what you said.
Good.
Okay.
Well, as you pointed out, animation with some of the tools like Blender, that's completely within the realm of just about anybody who wants to learn Blender today. The challenge, I think, as with anything, is getting a good story.
Yes.
If you could move a good story into animation or a good story into a live action movie, you'd have a chance to. You'd have a chance, at least, to have something that's distributable.
Yep.
As you pointed out, it's the distribution, it's the marketing that's the biggest challenge for us.
Yeah, and if we had invested in the infrastructure for that sort of cultural saturation, we could have won the entire thing by now.
Mm-hmm.
Since writers, no offense, tend to flatter themselves about the power of the pen, but myths are the thing that bind a society together. And the reason why conservatives go from defeat to defeat precisely on schedule is because all of their myths are the left's myths. They accept the framework before the battle even starts.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, that's
And,
just true.
well, to talk about indie Star Wars animation, actually, have any of you seen the TIE Fighter animation on YouTube?
Yes.
I mean, if Disney had been at all sensible, they would have just hired this guy, given him a blank check, and told him to make something.
Right. But as sensible, that doesn't usually make sense. I mean, think about the stupid British toy company and what they're doing. I mean, most of the people they're banning are much more talented than the people they have on hire.
Okay, talking about that one, the Space Marine, the 5-part YouTube animation.
Uh-huh.
That was incredible. And there
Yeah.
are some React videos I saw of it, of cinematographers and 3D artists breaking down why it's so great. And it's an amazing amount of attention to detail, shot framing, and it's one person.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yep.
G-Dubs shuts down it. Well, they issue so many broad legal threats that if the Emperor had a text-to-speech device, went on indefinite hiatus, and they had a better grasp of Warhammer 40k than apparently the 40k writers do these days.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, being overly litigious is a great way to kill the fan base for your game.
Mm-hmm.
But what that does bring up is that, look, the whole reason that we're against the other side is that we're convinced their vision, their aesthetic and moral vision that it flows from is false. If we didn't, there'd be no problem with them winning, but a big reason that we know that it is false is nothing they promised has been delivered on. We're not living in a shiny, sexy utopia. We're on the precipice of chaos. Okay?
Yeah. Where's my flying car?
We were promised Star Trek, and instead,
Yeah, the United Federation of Planets would actually pose a serious challenge to the traditional Christian worldview, but Clown World doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So, because these people have a false theory of mind, they have a false anthropology, they can only destroy. That's all they can do. So, like, I think it was Martel was saying, the MCU thing has largely run its course. They've burned through that, right? And they're going to do that with everything. It's just they're destroying it all.
Yeah.
And
Well, just the. Oh, sorry.
no, but just we're playing a waiting game now. Like, we're not taking anything back. Okay, guys. I mean, we need to reconcile ourselves to the fact that there's not going to be another Stephen King. There's not going to be another Steven Spielberg. There's not going to be another Walt Disney. Not for a long time. Not till we're on the other side of this. So AA is right. Martel is right. It's got to be one-on-one. It's got to be, well, here, try reading these books if you're dissatisfied with Shang-Chi. Try watching this fan-made animation if you're just sick of what Disney's been coming out with. Try this indie game if you're sick of AAA. Just we're in the evangelization stage. It's one soul at a time.
Yep. Now, I will say, as far as that British company goes, they were doing so well with 8th and 9th edition. It was actually a good rule set. They were releasing models for armies that hadn't gotten updates in years, and then they get a new CEO from Hasbro, and he immediately decides to do the Hasbro thing. And it seems like they're they also hate how the Imperium is considered the good guys by most people. So they're trying to very explicitly make them the bad guy, which they are missing the point of their own IP at that point.
Right.
But I think that what we're going to see, especially as 3D printing becomes more of a thing, is fans are going to start doing what I do, which is ignore all of the lore that you don't like and just stick with the lore that you do like. And what even is canon anyway?
Hmm.
It's whatever. It's canon is whatever in your head you like.
Yeah.
And I've hammered on this about comic books before. Don't get upset because Superman is gay or Wonder Woman is been relegated to Paradise Island for 2 years. It doesn't matter. Take the pieces that you like, curate those, go find something else. Go find that next big thing. You can still have the comic books you enjoy, the ones you love. They're just the old ones, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But don't complain about it. I'll go back to Raw. Brand Zero. Don't even talk about it. Ignore it. I think the people who should be talking about it are the people who are on the front lines and making their own stuff. It's like John Delarose does the right thing. He goes after them and laughs at them. Those people, I think, are safe to play the non-Brand Zero game. They can mention it. They can talk about it because they're literally comparing what they're doing to what the competition has. If you're just an observer, shut up about it.
Yeah.
Leave it to the pros. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly.
Just to conclude the argument about G-dubs, I think as 3D printing becomes more and more prevalent, you'll see people just making their own models and even making new models, playing off the whatever rule set they prefer.
Yep.
And eventually, Games Workshop is going to find that by trying to hold on to it, they've lost it.
Yeah.
They'll shut down, and the fans will keep 40K alive long after it's gone, which, personally, I believe that it actually does have cultural value, and we would be throwing away such a useful tool if we ignored it. Because space crusaders in power are fighting against demons spawned by the ruinous powers, one of which is literally the god of degenerate sects.
Hmm.
Yep. Well, if you take a look at some of the stuff that's being done right now for tabletop miniatures and gaming, like Conflict 47 is getting a little bit of traction. There's a couple of companies that are, I'm not even sure if they're adjacent to the British toy company, but they're doing essentially print your own model sales, and doing it for much cheaper than the British toy company is doing. I think you're probably going to see much more of that, where people are saying, these are pretty good looking models. Let me buy those. That allows them to buy better artists. Suddenly, you've got an improvement push going.
Yeah, I think the fundamental error that they are making is that 3D printing is only improving, and for the foreseeable future, it only will improve.
Yeah.
But they're thinking like a toy company that they have to sell the physical models or else it won't generate profit. But the value is in the intellectual property.
Exactly. It's the Instamatic problem. It's the Instamatic and film problem. What should you be giving away to encourage people to buy your stuff? Sell the film. You're making the profit on the film.
Yeah, and they have had a very mixed bag of writers, but making profits off of books or films, or like I was saying about TIE Fighter, if they just took the guy who did Space Marine, handed him a blank check and said, make something good, people would watch that.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that's where we have the ability to overcome, is, as Brian said, they can't create. So they're working against themselves. They're destroying everything that they had. If they used it intelligently, if they used it even in terms of just a profit model, they'd crush anybody who's trying to oppose them.
Yes.
Well, and keep a couple things. Go
sad that I was just saying that it's sad that a lot of the best companies out there these days are acting in a purely capitalist profit maximization. Like Nintendo. Pretty good overall. Most of the death cult isms come from the American translations, and those
Mm-hmm.
are kept a pretty good lid on, especially
Yeah.
by the standards of corporate America. And they're, by all indications, they're just a company that's out to maximize revenue by maximizing enjoyment of their products.
Yep.
Yep. Now, keep in mind, as David V. Stewart also points out, the number one selling video game of all time is a simple indie game. It's digital Legos. Now, Minecraft is a great example because Notch was finally forced out, and notice how long it's been since Minecraft 1, and we have no Minecraft 2. Again, it's because the skin suit merchants don't know how to make one. They
Right.
just don't.
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with you on that point. We don't have Minecraft 2 because it's superfluous. Like, what would you... If they're already releasing updates for Minecraft on a very consistent schedule, so what would you make in a Minecraft 2 that you aren't already planning on adding to Minecraft 1?
But again, you're looking at it too logically. Part 2 to anything is superfluous. Like, at least these days.
Well, yes, but with video games, especially in the modern day where you release constant updates, there needs to be something which sets apart the systems that you have. Otherwise, you just change the systems in the original game, which they've already done. And this is... Calling it Minecraft 1 is a bit of a misnomer because they're on version 18 right now. And in many cases, the updates have made it a completely different game from how it originally was.
Well, the reason to do it is for the hype, right? It's for marketing reasons. It doesn't have anything to do with the software. And I maintain it would have to be different. Like, it would have to be different enough to separate itself from Minecraft 1 with the 18th update, right? And I'm doubtful they'll ever be able to do it. And I will see, time will tell.
Right. But I think that if they just keep releasing updates for Minecraft, eventually you'll have version 32, let's call it. And that's going to be so different from 18 that it might as well be a different game.
Okay, fair.
That's not to say that I don't take your point with a lot of other games, but in this case, you're still thinking off the model where games have their version and that's it. And that's still the case with a lot of things, but there are also a lot of games that constantly release updates to the point where they are completely different from their original form. Paradox is another good example of that.
The Ship of Theseus model games.
Yes. Although really that's just a question of if a thing has a soul.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you look at, say, Hearts of Iron 3, it is a completely different game from Hearts of Iron 4. That's indisputable. But Hearts of Iron 4 has gone through so many content patches that it is completely separate from the Hearts of Iron 4 that it was at launch.
Regardless, though.
Mostly in good ways.
Yeah, number one game of all time. Indie game, largely made by one dude. Now we can discuss the wisdom or otherwise of selling out. Obviously, I think it was a mistake. I would say to any creator, don't do it. No matter how many dump trucks of money they back up to your front lawn. But it's a weird phenomenon in that, much like with indie publishing, in that we've got Old Pub beat hands down. We're 80% of the market. But because the enemy controls all of the media organs and they control the hype machine, nobody knows it. Like, you would still think that Simon Schuster is on top of the pile, and I still catch flack for being a self-published author, quote unquote. Like, there's still a stigma on that. When, wait, you mean I'm in one of the classes of authors that's the highest earning and controls the market? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, John.
Sorry, is Larry Correa still with Bain?
Not sure.
But yeah, he bought a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he has his own line
think about,
of guns now.
He does?
Yeah, they just announced that he has his own AR-15s now, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, super cool.
Good for him.
Hey.
But John Del Rosa's one of his recent videos last day or two, talking about at least 2 authors that are, TradPub and essentially doing nothing, even with all the hype that's behind them. I think one of the things to keep in mind is that the hype hides the failure as well as promotes, chooses who to promote. It's always good to know that all the people who you think are out there winning really aren't. And the 3 examples I think that are related to what John was talking about pretty much are the way you would have expected they performed. The data is out there to show that the way you expected them to perform is actually how they're performing. So it's good to keep that in mind as we're trying to figure out how marketing and advertising can work for the indie side.
But imagine if we had control of that machine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the problem. There's some people who can't. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that any serious country has to have a machine like that, one way or the other. It's just a matter of what content is getting put out there, and you can. That's with any information machine, like a book. You can write lies or you can write the truth, and far better to write the truth and get that noticed, especially if it's good quality.
Right.
Yeah, I'm looking at chat here. Fiona Wolf is talking with Thrall about Larry's book bombs. Yeah, he's helped a lot of authors, including me. I doubt any of you guys in chat or Discord right now, for that matter, would have heard of me if he hadn't book bombed my first book, Ethereal. So shout out to Larry. And Wolf also
picked up quite a few books.
Sorry, come again?
I've picked up quite a few books from his book bombs, and I haven't regretted them.
No. They've been good.
Yeah, Larry has good taste, and so it's good for me to know that I got picked because, he loved Ethereal. He told me there were a few parts where I was like, huh? And what? But then I'm like, oh, cool explosions. Oh, hey, nice gunplay. All right, demons, wow, neat. I think that's the best that they can. I don't think I could ask for anything else.
Yeah. I do like. I just liked your tagline about an Ethereal. Space pirates OD on the flies from Dune and wake up on Boo's couch.
One of my Twitter mutuals came up with that.
I just laughed.
But I'm glad it worked on you.
I never not laugh at that.
Phantom Wolf also says Con Inc. pisses her off. They have a bigger springboard. We keep leading about, where's the writers for us? Yeah, and it's not just Con Inc. Because, okay,
Yeah.
at the risk of alienating people, so one of the small points of light out there has been the Zoomers. And there are some luminaries among the Zoomers who get it, who are actually fighting Con Inc. and realize, hey, if we're going to change anything, we need to replace these guys first. We need to get rid of the gatekeepers. And so they get it politically. But they still are stuck in the pop cult. Like, I watch their live streams, and it's conversation number 1849 about why Star Wars Episode 3 is the bee's knees, And, like, Milo debated one of these guys the other day. And just...
Which one?
Beardson Beardley.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I saw something about that.
Yeah, it was over Pokemon initially, because, like, backstory, Beardson was doing a Pokemon pack unboxing on stream and found a rare Charizard, which is apparently worth, like, $500-$600. And, yeah, so Milo took the Gab and was like, dude, you're a grown man. Like, why are you getting excited about a kid's game? So they had to debate, and Milo, it wasn't even that he wiped the floor with Beardson. It was one of those moments when someone comes along and says, okay, you're a good guy, but there are things you don't know. And through no fault of your own, you don't even know that you don't know them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to show you, that your generation has been robbed of its culture. Like you were saying, Martel, like the millennials and younger have had every connection with the American myth that explained their own culture to themselves severed. And they're just adrift, but they don't even know it.
Yep.
So
Now, I will say,
yeah, go ahead.
I don't think there's anything wrong with Pokemon. It's
Right.
a fairly harmless pastime as far as it goes. It's just when it's to the detriment of something else.
Yeah, and Beardson was trying to argue, like, well, we don't need fine art anymore. We don't need paintings and opera and sculpture because we have movies now, and movies are just inarguably the ultimate art form. And my last
wow.
what was the last opera you saw? What was the last fine art museum you visited? And Beardson said, well, I've never, like, I never have, but I don't need to, because I can't imagine anything being better than a movie.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and Milo rightly pointed out.
Tannhauser.
Yeah. Go ahead.
But freaking Wagner, that neo-pagan extraordinaire, did a very great opera about a crusader. Tannhauser.
Yeah, there's stuff that other art forms can do that makes film directors jealous. They wish they could do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and again, it's not that movies are inherently bad. It's just that it seems like Beardson just completely missed the distinction between high and low art.
Yes.
Did he even miss it, or doesn't he understand it?
I think he understands it now, but
Not sure.
he didn't. And if there was a moment when Milo won, is when Beardson said, "Oh, wait, so like you think good art is objective?" And I was like, "Yes, I'm a Christian. Like art, if you think art isn't objective, you can't call yourself a Christian. Like here is the Catholic doctrine on what art is for. It is to elevate the soul to God through His creation, because the Creator is revealed in it."
Yes.
And if you don't think art has a purpose,
Amen.
yeah, or that purpose can be executed with more or less skill, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well, and I guarantee you that Beardson has favorite Pokemon artists that do better or worse jobs on the cards.
Right.
Mm.
And again, that might be another discussion point with him, or to open the discussion. And if you think about someone who's, at the leading edge of those Zoomers, how many others just have no concept of what's out there beyond the tiny little world they've been presented?
Yeah.
A startling number.
And the other problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other problem with the Zoomers, ignorance seems insulting, and I'm not even sure if that's the right word to use, because they don't know what they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But they seem to be intent on refighting every single schism and philosophical quarrel that's existed throughout history on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Because the biggest problem with the online right is just how fractious it is. Because everyone's trying to claw after the truth, and they're all very sincere, fanatical even, in their desire for it. But they all have their own interpretations of it, and they're all just dogmatic about it.
Yeah. But think about what I mean, the fact is, go back to Brian's Lost Generations. Why do they even exist? The fact that generations split away from being 40, then 20, now 10 years in length, roughly, is because of increases in many respects in communication. The fact that you have no time to ponder a thought or a concept. It gets hammered at you with the rapidity of a fire hose. So you grab on to what seems to be the right thing, because you've sussed it out for yourself or talked to other people. Well, this is the right thing, but then you get hammered with another dozen. There's it's a foundation of sand they're standing on.
Yeah, and they're all clawing after truth on their own. They really don't have any guides.
Mm-hmm.
So, and all that they can see is that the country that they were born in is crumbling apart around them, so they're terrified with good reason. They're angry at being sold a bill of goods. Like,
Right.
The college thing, the reason why so many people are upset about that is because we were all told, just get a degree, any degree, it doesn't matter what it is. And then once we actually hit the workforce, it was all but impossible to use that degree to find a job. And what do we get told? Well, you're just lazy. You need to work hard.
Right.
Even worse. Well, you should have just gone to trade school. From the same people who said, you've got to go to college to avoid living in the gutter.
Yep.
Yeah.
You don't want to wind up a janitor or a garbage man.
Or a plumber.
Yeah. Mind you, if everyone went to trade school, you just wind up with oversaturation in those areas.
Right.
True, but we've lost sight of the fact that college isn't for everyone, and it never has been for everyone. Like, you used to need an invitation to go to grad school. They chose you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we think you have something to contribute to our field, like come join our program.
Exactly.
But then it's a responsibility. You have to contribute to the field. Sorry, go ahead.
And now graduate school is the new bachelor's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then shortly, PhDs will be the new grad school, and so on and so forth.
As much as I dislike Heinlein, he called it when, like, I forget which book it was. It might have been Stranger in a Strange Land, but, like, everyone's secretary has a PhD in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they'll probably have to invent some sort of thing above a PhD, And the people who get that degree will wind up knowing less about their field than someone who earned a bachelor's 50 years ago.
It's kind of already there. It's called certificate programs. I mean, you see people collecting letters after their name these days because they've gone to a 4-class certificate program. So now they have another degree that, or at least a certification that they tack on at the end of their name. It's really sad in so many respects because it's chasing after, well, what's the next big thing that I can get behind so I can pull in another $2,000 raise or whatever it happens to be.
I really need to stop making tongue-in-cheek predictions that come true 20 seconds later.
Or at least not
I need to
horrifying.
use my powers for good.
Yeah, no, Brian's got that. He's. I still say he's the way to heaven at too many times.
I'm trying to cut back.
Yeah. But, yeah, so Zoomers, like Nick Fuentes, apparently there's no one more controversial than him for the Zoomer right. Like, you have entire schisms getting fought out over whatever he said in the latest podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of that is jealousy.
It's just...
Yeah.
Yeah, but you would think... Well, I guess a bunch of emotionally incompetent teenagers with no authority figures in their life to guide them. And a combination of fanaticism and panic. Great recipe for a lasting peace.
Yeah.
Yeah. Say what you want about him, but if you look at there's a type, there's a template for the kind of people that just virulently hate him, and they're almost all cringe pagan LARPers.
Mm-hmm.
They're the kind of people who would call us like Christ cucks and say we should worship Odin, and they're the kind of people with no ability to delay gratification, high time preference, and they're the, well, doing anything is better than doing nothing kind of crowd that just gets everyone in trouble. That's what I've observed.
Yeah.
As far as the ancestor thing goes, at some point all of my ancestors were pagans, and then at some point all of my ancestors were Christians. So which would you have to venerate?
Yeah. Chat item, Bradford mentioned that PhDs will be granted status according to which school they got it from and what high status position they get with it. Already there. If you actually start talking to PhDs in a given field, it depends on, well, so where did you go to school? Yeah.
Is Stanford higher or is Princeton higher? I'm just curious.
I don't even remember anymore.
I think it's Princeton.
I've been out of that.
Sorry, Princeton's an actual Ivy, though, right? Did I just kill the conversation?
I've got no. I can't answer that. I have no idea. I never followed it.
Okay.
When I was getting my PhD, I was working in the field just to do the best I could to learn what I needed to do to improve the field. And I didn't. If I ran into somebody who said, "Well, your degree is from X and mine is from Y and mine's better because it's from Y," I'd laugh in their face.
See, Chan in chat. Nick needs to get off the pop cult, but he's a good kid. With seasoning, he'll be even better. Yeah, that's my take too.
Yeah.
He can be annoying. He's got some narcissism, but then again, to be a leader, you have to have an ego. You have to have the audacity to think, okay, I can lead thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's learning. He's stepped on a couple rakes, but he keeps going and he keeps passing the witch test. So I wish him and the Groypers well.
Yeah. There's this one Twitter and YouTube account that I'm thinking of in particular called Pax Christus.
Hmm.
I don't doubt their sincerity. That it's just they're a little bit too fanatical.
Hmm.
Like, to the point of basically proclaiming fatwas on whatever it is that they're particularly incensed at this time. Like,
Yeah.
which, again, I don't doubt their sincerity, but that type of personality sparks off the other types of personalities, and it just contributes to the general fractiousness of that section.
Yeah. I think one of the things to consider too is if you can get people to stop pouring the poison into their ears just for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've mentioned it before. I've stopped watching national news and local news as much as I can. I'll see a couple things running through, news feeds, and that's basically all I worry about. It's like if it's not affecting me, I don't care about it. I just don't pay attention to it. And I think part of the problem with some of the younger set, and I definitely part of the problem with the boomer set is just this constant influx of garbage information.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in this guy's case, it's interesting because he's more of the firing against online stuff. Like the sort of stuff that you would only see if you're... Like, his latest thing is VTubers.
Okay.
Yeah, he would make a good cleric in one of those fundamentalist societies, but he was unfortunately born in America. I shouldn't rag on the guy. He's not here to defend himself. But, like I said, clearly sincere. That's indisputable. Just an example of that type of personality which is so prevalent these days, which is just fed up with compromise to the point where it affects the ability to unite and actually get anything done.
Right. But again, how many mentors have these guys had to help them see how to do that? So again, as you pointed out, they're kind of stumbling along, just trying to figure it out for themselves.
Yep. And they're making all of these mistakes that people in the past have made, but they get to do it all over again, brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mentioned this, the whole China thing, but thank goodness we have the Nicene Creed. Otherwise, I have no doubt that we would have had to call another ecumenical council.
Yeah, like, some people think
someone would have been going through the scriptures and then decide the Son is not the Father and has one single nature, and would have found a way to combine monophysitism and Arianism.
Yeah. Well, and that...
It's going to be Saint Nick on that one.
Yeah, that honestly ties in to the problems on the right, because hierarchies are inevitable. Christianity is a revealed religion, and there's a reason that Jesus appointed apostles, okay? And for the longest time, you did have the hierarchy stepping in and drawing theological lines in the sand. That's all a dogma is. It's, we're not going to talk about this anymore. It's settled, right? And they've just been asleep at the switch, and that's what's led all this confusion is, like, go back and read a papal encyclical from even like the 1920s, and then read anything from the 60s on. And it's now, like, first of all, they used to be like a page and a half. And now you've got like 32 pages just flowery, cyclical, meandering, self-referential slop that is afraid to make a concrete statement.
Oh boy.
Well, it seems too that you'll in the modern ones you'll see them. It's reminiscent of the Foundation series. The encyclical has elements that cancel each other out until it almost renders itself to zero.
Yeah, what was it called?
So what I'm hearing is the lawyers are.
Yeah. But yeah, good point, AA Custodione Custodes, which I believe was the most recent document from Pope Francis, which some people are saying like suppress the Latin Mass, but not really. It's got at least one glaring contradiction in it, and two just got through the church speak and like the canon lawyering. What it basically says is, okay, Tradcasts, if you want to hold a Latin Mass, you can't do it in an actual church. You've got to do it somewhere else on parish grounds. But then elsewhere, it says, oh yeah, and you can't do it on this type of property either. And that term is a synonym for parish grounds. So it says both.
Yeah.
You must and must not do it on parish grounds. And it's clearly a mistake. It was just hastily shot from the hip. And so that's why a lot of bishops are just saying, okay, well, barring a point of clarification on this, we're just going to ignore this and default to Benedict XVI's motu proprio allowing the Latin Mass.
Right. I guess, again, this is a benefit that I think we see on the indie side as well. Go back to A Man for All Seasons and the scene talking about, the forest of laws. The fact is, if things weren't as complex as they are right now, we'd be in much worse shape than we are. Because there's so much stumbling around in a lot of areas with IP, with bringing out new product, any number of things you take a look at, the tentacles are knotting themselves up and working against each other, and we can kind of slip around and in throughout and do what we want to do. It's much more difficult to tap someone else on the shoulder and say, hey, let's go this way. But individuals and small groups can kind of work their way through that forest.
Yeah, being small and agile. Go ahead, Martel.
It would just be... No, I agree. It would just be so much better and easier if we had those guides, those leaders.
Amen.
We've got 1,000 monarchists and no king.
Yeah.
And look, I'll tell you what happened. Okay, so here's my take on Vatican II. The church, which had largely confined itself within the walls of Fortress Catholicus for over 100 years, finally heard about this modernism thing, pretty much, and like, hey, we might want to do something about this, and decided to hold an open house. Like, let's dialogue with modernism and see if we can come to terms, right? Not realizing that, no, modernism had triumphed after the Great War, had consolidated that triumph after World War II, and was pretty much already ensconced in an unchallengeable, or perhaps at best, extremely difficult to challenge position. Like, it had the moral high ground. So all that happened when the church hierarchy opened itself up to try to dialogue with modernism was it found that modernists were completely uninterested in any kind of dialogue. They just dismissed the church as knuckle-dragging rubes and just opened themselves up for assimilation.
Mm-hmm.
So it just backfired, and instead of making an impact on the modern world, the church suffered deep incursions by the modern world, not to the point of creating a rupture with tradition or affecting any dogmas, but that is really modernism's and now postmodernism's MO. They're trying to do the same thing with the church that Disney did with Star Wars, that the post-Jim Shooter guys did with Marvel, which was, okay, well, we'll basically leave the brand, if you will, and the trappings unchanged, and not visibly rock the boat at first, but just subtly subvert it and turn it to our ends. So, like, that's why you haven't had a modernist pope who's come out and said, like, okay, yes, there is one nature in Christ, or there are two persons in the Godhead, or even like, well, abortion's okay now, or divorce is okay now, because they realize they don't need to, because they figured out that the perception of the truth can be more important than the actual truth. And they just control the narrative. But
Prince of the Air.
yeah. Now, on the other hand, though, what a great apologist like St. Robert Bellarmine might say is, well, okay, so they've got the institutions, they've got the media, they've got big tech, they've got all the governments. We have the faith. So really, it's not even fair. Yeah, the Pope is not the head of the church, Christ is. Pope's just keeping his seat warm. And I killed the conversation again.
No, I'm just trying to catch up. I've been I'm actually watching over on the YouTube side. I need to get back over here. I'm wondering why this doesn't seem like it's moving forward. I understand now. But I think this is again some of these questions are why I started digging into comic book history and doing the things that with those articles, because it was in a need of clarity in my mind. And I think that's what's confusing some people with other media too. It's like, this doesn't make sense. I keep talking to people about gaming companies and how they're just doing things to destroy the IP. Well, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. They wouldn't be doing that. They need to make money. What if they don't? What if they're not being rational? What if they are trying to destroy it because it's something that other people love? And it's done out of hate, not out of a monetary benefit. And it's just so difficult for people to grasp that might be an option.
It's a sad state of affairs.
Well, we've been down a lot lower before.
Yeah.
But it's not to detract from the scandal and tragedy of the current era.
Well, truth and beauty will prevail in the end because it's inexorable. It's like the law of gravity.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You can defy gravity for a time, but it will have its due.
Right.
Well, hey, I
It
can...
is.
Go ahead.
That's just sad thinking of all of the art that we aren't making right now. Like, heck, comics. The visual medium has excellent potential. both for moral instruction and just general entertainment. I don't know if you follow any of what Vox Day is doing, but
Yeah.
I noticed that his comic site has recently started doing the parables in comic form.
Yes.
Oh, good.
That's actually quite an excellent tool of instruction for kids, I think.
Amen.
Well,
Good on him.
there's all kinds of opportunities with comic books. It's regarded as a very low form of literature or low form of entertainment, but the advantages are that it's relatively easy to produce. Just about anyone can make a comic, and it's quick relative to a lot of the other media.
Yes. Now, I would agree that it is low art, but that's not a bad thing.
No, it's not.
Not at all.
Like, sometimes you want Tannhauser. Tannhauser is great. Other times you want pulps or Star Wars.
Yep. And again, this is what was trying to get to with those articles, that where did things break down? Again, you come back to 1968 and there it is. It just all seems to fall apart. And the comic book, as it was, the skyrocketing Marvel Comics of 1961 to 1968, how did they buck the trend? If you can find that and communicate that to other creators, that's an incredible jewel in the crown. If you could capture a little bit of what Stan Lee and the rest of the Greatest Generation bullpen did and how they did it, you've got a road to creating something very entertaining that people want to read. Now, what do you want to put in it?
Here, here. I just want to address something I saw in chat.
Important part.
From Fiona Wolf about addressing wrath. And yeah, that's key. That's important. We are commanded to be perfect. We always need to be weeding out our vices. Here is a key from the spiritual masters. If you identify one of your besetting vices, trying to tackle it head on and just suppress it, right? When you notice it and just say, no, not going to do that. I got to stop doing that. Don't focus on the negative. Instead, recognize it, offer it up to God, pray for the opposite virtue. So if you find yourself wrestling with wrath, pray for meekness, which incidentally is not just being a pansy. Meekness is knowing how to regulate your anger to respond within reason. So Christ was being perfectly meek when he was whipping the money changers out of his house.
Yeah.
I actually have a theological question, if you don't mind my asking.
Never. It is my duty to answer such questions.
Okay. So, the last shall be the first shall be the last. All who exalt themselves shall be humbled. All who humble themselves shall be exalted. Obviously, that line gets taken a lot these days to mean that it is the refuse of society, as it were, who are actually the greatest, and the great are terrible. The way I have always read that is that it's more than just being humble, it's about being able to humble oneself from a position of greatness. If that makes sense. And I'm wondering if I'm misreading that.
Okay, well, let's take a look here. So, it's from the Gospel according to St. Matthew, chapter 20, verses 13 to 19. But he answered one of them and said, Friend, I do thee no wrong. Didst thou not agree with me for a penny? Take that thine is, and go thy way. I will give unto this last, even as unto thee. Is it not lawful for me to do what I will with mine own? Is thine eye evil because I'm good? So the last shall be first, and the first last. For many be called, but few chosen. Okay, so I'll actually stop at 17. So yeah, I believe that's from the parable of the vineyard workers, where the guys show up at different times of the day, but they're all paid 1 denarius, which was just a standard day's wage back then. So when approaching any scripture, the church teaches us that there are 4 senses, right? The scripture is polyvalent, or it speaks with 4 voices at once on 4 levels. So the primary is the literal. So first we always look at the literal sense. And on the literal level, it's about wages. Right? Cheating the worker being one of the 4 sins that cries out to heaven for vengeance. So it's about just wages, but also generosity. And then also here we have unjust indignation, possibly even derision, where one of the workers is like actually deriding his employer for choosing, for being generous, for his generosity, and he gets taken to task. Mm-hmm. Well, then there's the moral level. So what morally is the scripture trying to teach here? And I'll actually come back to that. Then there's the allegorical level, right? So what is this an analogy for? What else could this relate to? So commonly throughout church history, this passage has been seen as an analogy for the kingdom being taken away from Israel and given to the church. So that the Gentiles came in last, but they are going to be put over the people of Israel because the Jews didn't believe, but the Gentiles believed. So there's that aspect of it. And then there's the anagogical sense, which is, how does this point to the last things? How does it point to the second coming of the world to come? And so in this sense, it would be talking about, it would relate to when Jesus says, well, there are those who are entering the kingdom of heaven before you, right? Like so again, it ties into that because I believe he was talking about Gentiles. Like, those Gentiles are getting into the kingdom of heaven before the sons of Abraham, right? But on the moral level, I would side with Martel there that it's a call to humility. Like Scripture, we need to interpret Scripture according to the full content and unity of the Bible. So looking also at like the parable of the wedding guest, right, where the guy who seats himself at the high table is busted down to the kids' table, right? Mm-hmm. But if you do the reverse, then the groom will say, "No, come up, my friend. Don't hide over there. Come up with me." So, yeah, morally it's a call to humility, which is just, it's not beating yourself up. It's taking an accurate stock of your position according to reason. And again, following from the great saint Louis of France, there are saints who are kings, and they weren't called upon to renounce their thrones. Even though he wanted to abdicate and become a monk. But he didn't, because he realized, my vocation is to be the leader of my country, the father of my country, to sanctify and rule my people. And it's because I don't want to do that, but God put me here, that I must do that. And I must execute my duties well. And that's humility. That's supreme humility. So
I think people miss that too when you're talking about humility. It means to, well, I mean, I need to humble myself. It isn't you need to debase yourself. You need to, as you said, Brian, you need to accurately judge, where am I? And that is such a difficult thing to do, because you've been asked to find where you are on the dial, do your absolute best to honestly evaluate where are you on the dial. That's the humility that's being asked of you.
Yeah, and it's extra hard in a modernist, liberal, democratic society that's imbibed the poison of egalitarianism, because society used to have helps for people, right? As much as the idea of station and class gets just shredded constantly, it was a load off people's minds for the most part to know, okay, this is my place, this is my duty corresponding to my station, I know what I need.
This is how I should act relative to others.
Yeah. And that not only helps society get along, it helps people achieve salvation. Because guess what?
Yes.
If you do not, following St. Alphonsus Liguori here, right? Well, he was a doctor of the church. He wrote, if you do not, if you've discerned a vocation and you don't follow it, it's almost impossible for you not to go to hell. Because you're not going to get the graces that God has prepared for you only if you follow the path that he has devised for you, because he knows better than you do. He made you. He knows the best way for you to be saved. If you turn your back on that, you're probably not going to be saved. And modern society gives no help for that.
Yeah.
It's sink or swim. It throws you to the sharks. Which brings us back to the problems the Zoomers are having.
Yeah, I honestly rather resent seeing churches doing mission trips to other countries these days, because it seems like there's such a necessity for evangelization in America that they ignore because they seem to believe that we're still a Christian nation.
Amen. Mother Teresa pointed this out in the 90s. Look, America's mission territory. There is more poverty here than in India, but it's spiritual poverty. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not that people don't want the word of God. Again, with the Zoomers, they are crying out for the truth.
Yeah.
And they're being failed by everyone who should have been guiding them.
That's a recurring theme. And we can't only blame the boomers for that. There's been a couple generations in between that failed the Zoomers too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I honestly blame the so-called greats. They won World War II. Cool. With those material advantages, anyone should have been able to win that. And then you went and raised the boomers. So how great were you really?
Well, remember, it's the boomers who named them the greats, but first they called them squares, right? Because they weren't hip to the Cultural Revolution. They only became the greats around the 90s when they started retiring and dying and giving the boomers their stuff. And it was all, oh, thanks, Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But thank you for answering the theological question.
Well, glory be to God.
The difficulty as an intellectual is always falling into error. Not to pat myself on the back, but
Well, I mean, if in humility you deserve it.
actually it was actually Nietzsche that got me thinking about that, because he was the politics or philosophy of resentment, as I'm sure you've heard of it. But he liked to use the example of lambs facing an eagle, in that the lambs have no chance against an eagle, so they invent a form of morality in which they are virtuous by virtue of their persecution by the eagle, while the eagle does not care. And I believe that he incorrectly read that passage as giving justification to resentment.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to look at church history to show that was an error.
Yeah. Although,
Yeah,
speaking
you're
of
right.
moderns adrift, Germans in the mid 1800s being the product of the Enlightenment, what do you expect?
German philosophy was a mistake. It's just still bearing this rotten fruit.
Enlightenment philosophy was a mistake.
Oh yeah.
I agree. German philosophy's been bad, but don't get me started on the English or the
Okay.
French. The continental philosophy in general, really, they should have just left it all to Greece and Rome.
Yeah, it's been the Germans in particular that have just wreaked havoc with theology. Like, German historical critics are why no one reads the Bible or really believes the Bible anymore, and it's what's led directly to these snake oil salesmen claiming, like, oh, well, Jesus was just a great teacher. Oh, he was just a revolutionary who was executed for his trouble. Oh, he never existed. Paul made him up. And you scratch all these guys, and you find a German historical critic like Boltmann or forget the guy's name. I think it was oddly enough Christian, but Hegel's disciple. It leads directly back to them.
Don't get me started on the Jesus was an early socialist revolutionary thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cutting in real quick and getting back to the game. Fiona's asking, what happens when the calculator learns the prime number function?
Well, you really have to, because notice that like the way calculator works is you do combos of two different factors, right? So like you can choose CT, so that is like when a unit goes around, level is self-explanatory, experience total of the unit, the height that the unit is standing on, okay? And then you multiply it by 543 or prime number,
Okay.
right? So that's how that works. And prime number lets you target folks whose levels, or like any of these up here, are not a function of one of these.
Okay.
So that's the catch-all. So what I was going to ask chat and my co-host here is, so I've already purchased 3. So now I've got to pick another variable here. So which of these 4 variables should I choose? Should I choose initiative order, enemy level, enemy experience total, or enemy height on the map?
Are there any benefits to one over the other? Or is this just what would you like to do next?
Well, that's what I'm wondering from having seen the game. So, like, basically, if I do CT, then I've got 3, right? Now, the calculator can then cast spells on every single enemy unit whose initiative is a multiple of 3 will get hit by the spell.
Okay.
Same thing with level, XP, and height.
Well, level, you've been 2 or 3 levels higher, but not, you really haven't been more than 2 levels a lot of the time. So I'm not sure level is where you want to go.
Okay.
Yeah. Offhand? Well, so it's based off of the enemy's levels as a multiple of 3, right? Or multiple of 3 relative to the calculator.
So, like, it's not relative to the calculator. So, like, if I do, like, let's say fire 3 and then CT, it will hit any enemy whose initiative is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with level. It will hit enemies who are level 3, 6, 9, 12. Same thing, like if their XP is divisible by 3, it'll hit everyone, and it'll hit everyone whose current height on the map is divisible by 3. And I'm pretty sure it's unavoidable. That's what's great about calculators. They cannot save against it.
So just offhand, it seems like CT would get you a better range.
Mhm.
I would agree with that.
because level is a bit too. It's a bit
Yeah.
too all or nothing. I think. Like it seems
Okay.
like they're going to be within about 2 levels of each other most of the time.
Good point.
Whereas you're going to have a much wider array of initiative that varies depending on class, level, all that stuff.
Right.
So you'll effectively be able to hit more if it's based off of initiative.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and do that. Oh. And I can actually pick 2. Oh, sorry. So I've learned 5, actually. I didn't learn 3. But I can pick
Okay.
prime number if I want.
I would say prime. I would say take the prime number just for the added flexibility and targeting.
Right.
And chat agrees. So, Chan says, I want prime number death soon. Patience, my friend. That's where we're going with this. Because what we're really going to do is we're going to do 2 calculators and then a mimic.
Oh,
And you will kill everything with that combination. Because that covers the whole possible spread.
I cast math.
How Vancian.
Yeah, I love it. So there we go.
I love it. If I could address something that I see in chat, imagine Christian artists taking a chunk of the manga audience. The potential for evangelization is unimaginable.
Yep.
From Chan, and I agree. But I had a bit of a rant about this the last time I was on, but it's the same thing as with movies. If we just take advantage of entertainment mediums and we don't turn up our noses because it's comics or it's films or manga, then absolutely we should pursue it. And personally, I think that the manga and anime audiences are rather desperate for actual quality entertainment.
I would tend to agree. If you take a look at webtoons and tapas, which are currently the 2 big web comic presentation forums, there's a lot of stuff out there, but it's all the same stuff. It's all the same. Everyone's trying. It's like writing a romance novel and putting it on Amazon. I'm sorry, a bodice ripper. I'm sorry, emo porn. And putting it on
marketing it in fantasy or science fiction.
Exactly. It's everyone's writing the same thing but trying to market it in a little bit different way. I'm not saying everything is unique, but it's difficult for the really unique stuff to bubble towards the top. So getting something that is unique and getting it seen, number one, just because it's unique, I think in many respects would get you more eyeballs than writing the next duplicate story that you think is going to be popular and trying to find popularity instead of saying write something real, write something very focused on either Christianity or Western civilization, whatever you'd like to do, but write a story that is real to you. That, I think, if it starts to get seen, can be popular, if nothing else because it's unique.
Yeah, and I would argue that a mistake our side makes a lot is they think that it has to be explicitly Christian or people won't be evangelized.
Yeah.
And that reaction says it all. It's just this ham-fisted bit of propaganda, and we're ignoring the lessons of the death cult, which is subtlety is best, especially in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't, I believe you've mentioned this quite a lot, Brian, but the way that you show, that way that you evangelize is you present a situation and then give the hero a consistent moral code and have them triumph by sticking to that moral code.
Yeah. You show the hero winning with the behavior you want to reinforce.
Right.
Yep.
That's how they did it.
In this we have and in this we have something of an advantage over them because their values are hedonism and debauchery, which is, well, it's appealing on the surface, and then once you get to the bottom of the bottle, it winds up being a lot less appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Our values are timeless.
Well, and they can
Now,
only...
unless we also have a bit of a...
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, no, and they can only...
We also have a bit of a...
They can only appeal to our values because they don't have their own. They're parasitic on us, which is why the witch test works. Go ahead.
Yep. We also have a bit of a disadvantage in that the first time with evangelization, we were dealing with virtuous pagans, the likes of Marcus Aurelius. There were clear virtues that we could point to and say, we are the fullest realization of those ideals which you espoused. These days it's a bit more complicated because they have had all of their values torn away from them, and in fact they laugh at the idea of having values. So we need to evangelize to a crowd which has fallen even lower than the pagans who are practicing human sacrifice.
Yeah, because these guys are practicing human sacrifice too, but on an industrial scale.
Yes, and most of them don't even realize they're practicing human sacrifice.
There are those who do, though. They're the scary ones.
And those,
Oh, here we go.
Those people are genuinely scary.
So math skill time.
Maths. CT.
So let's take a look. Ooh, there we go.
There
Gonna
you
get
go.
the guy on 5. I'm pretty sure that's what CT is. Let me make sure. Yeah, not seeing any other stat with that name. So we're going to get him. And I can use any other spell I've learned from any class. And I've learned every skill.
That is powerful.
Oh, so here we
Now
go.
I see why my friend was saying calculators were OP.
Yeah, we're doing death. Here it comes. Here you go.
Multiple of 5 deaths.
This
Yeah,
should
CT5
work.
death.
Oh. It hit her for some reason. Okay, so apparently that's not what CT is, but it worked! I love when magical experiments go wrong.
And yet, it still went right.
Absolutely.
So what is CT then, if not initiative?
I don't know. We'll find out. I'll have my chemist deal with her. Take out this Minotaur. But we've got until I raise the calculator to figure out what CT is. So if anyone in the chat knows what CT stands for in Final Fantasy Tactics, I will really appreciate you telling us.
Don't you love relearning a game while you're playing it?
And I think I never knew that, honestly. Like, I always thought it was, like, combat turn is what I thought it meant.
Yeah, I noticed when I went back to a lot of the classic games I played as a kid, I struggled with them as a kid, and then after a few years away, I came back and just smashed through them.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like, if we can believe this, CT is either charge time or clock ticks. Basically, out of 100, it is a gauge filled with as many points as your speed value during every clock tick. When CT is full, one's AT is activated.
Okay. So it's
What is
like
AT?
I think active turn, but I do know that. So like so here's the AT list, which is the initiative. So I was confusing CT with AT.
Okay.
So the enemy now has an
Yeah,
AT
another-
6.
Yeah, so
Gotcha.
another answer here is the maximum CT capacity is always 100. You get a fraction of that filled every clock tick. So if you have 0 CT filled, a speed of 8, and a clock tick occurs, you'll have 8 out of 100 CT filled. With each tick, you get another 8 until it finally reaches or surpasses 100 when your AT finally occurs.
Okay, so this guy's got a speed of 4, so his CT will always be a multiple of 4.
Okay.
So we need to wait till he's on 20. I don't know a way of checking current CT, though.
Isn't there a bar at the bottom of below the HP and NP?
Oh! Okay, there it is. Yeah, it's the green bar. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. I'm a genius.
Well, yeah, you are, but it... Okay, so it's not... Okay, it's a 38. There it is. Well, there we go, chat. Now we can use the calculator to maximum advantage. It's got any stuff I can see.
So CT does give a better range, it would seem.
Oh,
since
yeah.
it actually changes throughout the battle,
Definitely.
which actually, I think that means that if you pick up Prime 3, 4, and 5, you will always be able to hit an enemy at some point, no matter what.
That's the idea.
Which, okay, yeah, I see why it's so OP. That's incredible.
Yeah. Oh, dude, we're going to be going through battles like boom, boom, boom next.
Oh, this is great. This is hilarious.
Now you understand my love of this game.
I do.
I love it. Oh, that's what I wanted. Well,
Oh,
it's
man.
not yeah, the calculators take a while to get traction, but oh boy, once they do, it's beautiful.
And Chan mentions here too, it is possible to hit yourself using math, so be careful.
Thank you for that. Did he say that before I did it?
No, just said it now.
Yeah, I won't make that
Well,
mistake
you know.
twice on purpose. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Deanna Wolf saying in chat, if something says in the blurb, this is Game of Thrones meets Anita Blake, that's 1,000% a big red flag.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what Anita Blake is, and I suspect I don't want to.
Think of vampire urban.
Oh, is she that interview with the vampire chick?
No, she's not. In fact, I've just lost his name. Why can't I think of it? All I can think is I am having a moment here.
There we go.
Character.
Oops. Oops. See, yeah, you got to plan carefully when you're using math.
Hit yourself again.
But I hit him, though. But yes. because I did prime number CT.
Oh. It's like 70 maxims for maximally effective mercenaries, number like 50 or something. If you're not willing to shell your own position, you're not willing to win.
Well, I want to win.
Speaking of webcomics, that was a good one.
Yeah. And Bradford points out that, yeah, urban fantasy that turned into smut over time.
Ah, great.
But, dang it. Come to me, Internet.
Don't want to be this close to a mind flayer. That's suboptimal. Gotta figure something out.
Yeah. In Soviet Russia, calamari eat you.
You, yeah.
Ah, it didn't move him back. Sometimes he'll get knocked back from that. Oh, I know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna make him love me. It worked. The thief stole his heart.
That's a bit of a double-edged sword with an illithid. Like, on the plus side, you got the Mind Flayer to fall in love with you. On the downside, you got the Mind Flayer to fall in love with you.
Well, life is trade-offs.
Dresden Files. That's it. That's what I was thinking of.
Beyond bad smut. Much. Oh, Anne Rice passed away recently.
Yeah.
She did. It's Possible that Jim Butcher was slightly inspired by Anita Blake in doing, essentially getting into writing. I don't know all the details about it, but that's Anita Blake that's how I know Anita Blake.
Jim Butcher is one of my favorite author origin stories of all time.
Which is?
Okay. So, Jim wants to be an author, so he takes night classes at his local college and turns in a short story for his first project, which he admits was like ripped off from the X-Files. And by his own admission, it sucks, like the whole group, because the idea is everybody turns in a short story per class, and they meet like once a week, and then they do like a round table where everybody critiques everybody's story, and they just lambasted his, but he decided, no, I'm going to go back to the drawing board. So he rewrote it, and the second draft sucked, and he rewrote it again, and the third one sucked, and he just kept rewriting it until people were like, this doesn't entirely suck. And then he did that with a novel, but it just, he kept going beyond the point when any sane person would quit, because he was just told, look, you have no talent for this, you have no sense of characterization or pacing or conflict or world building or any of the tools a writer needs. But he just kept at it for years. Okay, so then he writes what would become the first Dresden book. Realizes he needs an agent to break in because this is before Indie. Finds out that some big agency's having a contest where if you enter and they pick you, then you get to have lunch with this agent where you get to pitch your book. So, like, he entered the contest and he lost, like, on a technicality or something, but basically decided it wasn't fair, he lost. So he crashed the lunch. Like, he found out where it was being held, went there, and just parted the velvet rope and just sat down across from the agent. Like, with the author actually won there.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing he's got going for him is he is such a charming, charismatic guy that he won the agent over. Like, you told him afterward, if you'd been like one whit less charming, I'd have had security kick you out. But as it is, I'm going to help you out. I'm not going to represent you, but I know someone at another house who's looking for exactly what you were selling. And that's how we got signed.
Interesting.
I'm reminded of that Monty Python skit. But the fourth time, it stood. Just
Yeah.
wow, that is serious dedication right there.
Persistence alone is all powerful.
Yep. What is it that Thomas Edison quote? Invention is 5% genius and 95% perspiration.
I think it's 1% inspiration
Yeah,
and
10%
99%.
night.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, AA. I don't know the
No,
percentage.
you may be right. Who we're talking about earlier was Laurel K. Hamilton. Anita Blake is the character in her books.
Okay. And it started out as urban fantasy and then turned into urban fantasy smut.
Yeah, as Fiona has mentioned, the first three books or so were pretty decent. Then the author went through a divorce and it got a little bit off the
Buddy,
wall.
you can always tell in a writer's work when they went through a divorce,
Yeah.
Yep.
unfortunately.
Temple of Doom, looking at you.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to give my calculator another bite at the apple here, but since this guy hasn't been acting, he's been stuck on a CT of 4. So I think we've given enough of a demonstration of her powers. So I'm gonna just kill him.
It's ridiculously overpowered, but it's also such an imaginative way of doing things. That you actually have to put a bit of thought into it. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The game continues to impress.
Mm-hmm. It does.
Yeah. What we're gonna have to do later on is get everyone in my party to a level that is not divisible by anything, like basically prime level, and then just keep using, like, have multiple calculators that do like level divisible by 3, 4, and 5, and then have a mimic, and that should do the trick.
And then have a handful of the regular guys for the rare enemy whose level is a prime number.
Yep. Because there comes a point in this game where you really don't need to level up anymore, and you can actually prevent yourself from leveling up by and large. I mean, only the scripted, pre-planned battles will force you to get much XP. But then if you don't have a prime level anymore, you just go out and grind till you're prime level again. And there might even be ways to level drain yourself.
I can see how that would be useful.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, he's getting close. It wasn't Thief that had the stuff I wanted. Oh wait, who's got like move +2? Oh, there it is. Yeah, okay, it is. Yeah, it's getting close to that. I want to get everybody move +2 if possible. Speaking of which... Okay, not yet. Yeah, I got relatively little JP from that battle. See what the calculator's got. Not enough to buy anything else. And then I haven't quite figured this out, but characters don't only gain JP in their class. I don't know if it's they also gain some JP in the classes of other units they're in a battle with. I think that might be what's going on, because like she gained some knight JP in that battle, and Reinhardt is a knight. Not sure how that works, but glad it does. Okay. Well, I think that'll do it for Final Fantasy Tactics for tonight. We've been going for 3 hours. And I still have book formatting and publishing to do. Because, as I mentioned to my co-host earlier, the Comet Frame X8 RPG is ready to upload to Amazon. So that will be coming soon. And Indiegogo backers Indiegogo backers already got the digital version. So I kept my promise on that one.
And from the perspective of a playtester, the rules are very good.
Very much appreciated.
Flexible, well written. Yep. You're able to do quite a lot with them.
Oh, that's high praise. I always love to hear from satisfied customers. So I'm going to check chat one more time. Oh, Fiona Wolf has a suggestion that perhaps the calculator gained some knight JP because she hit a knight with her math spell. That's possible. It's a good theory. That would open up some possibilities.
Indeed.
That would be very interesting. If that's the reason for it.
Because we know I love wheeling on my own guys.
Yeah.
And then Bradford Walker.
Well, I was just thinking.
Oh, yeah. What were you thinking?
If you can control which stats they end up with, then you could just mass farm class XP with your calculators by having them hit all of those classes with weak spells.
Ooh. That's tantalizing. I'll have to look into that more for next time. Oh, good night, Rawl. And Bradford Walker says, if Old Pub didn't exploit fellow travelers and dodgy outlets shilling for clout, they wouldn't be able to hold the narrative these days. I mean, yeah, and they've got a tenuous enough hold on it. It's just, I hate to say this, but we're largely going to have to wait for the current corrupt edifice to collapse. Kind of like the Soviet Union, just kind of got to wait for it to burn itself out.
Mm-hmm.
Run through the seed corn.
Yep.
All the more reason to create faster and build a library.
Yep. Unfortunately, there is a great deal of room.
Well, on that note, I'm going to call it here. Thanks to everybody who joined me. Thanks to chat. This has been Brian Niemeyer, and my co-hosts have been
Ardenon Studios.
And Martel.
Make sure to like and subscribe. Make sure to click the bell icon as a reminder to everyone in chat. This has been Geek at Retro-Spective Final Fantasy Tactics. We'll be back tomorrow night. And until then, remember, games are better